When you start losing your hair, one of the first things you'll probably do is look for baldness cures. That's what I did, and I'd like to share with you my experience. Maybe it'll help you. I started losing my hair when I was around 16. Yes, it bothered me. And of all people, the first thing my bald dad suggested was that I try some of the new hair growth medication. He was referring to Rogaine. At the time, it was still a prescription medication, so on top of the then $70 per month bottles of Rogaine, we also had to pay a dermatologist for weekly visits where this fat old doctor would use a ruler to measure how many hairs per square inch had grown on my head. If I remember correctly, he counted fuzz as successful hair growth. What a joke. Basically, I ended up spraying chemicals onto my scalp every day for over 2 years for absolutely nothing. I don't think it grew a single real hair on my head. But my quest to escape baldness didn't end there. When I was around 18, I went to the Hair Club for Men and talked my mom into paying something like $2,000 for me to get fake hair, basically a toupee. What happens is you go in, they make a mold of your head, create a wire mesh custom fitted to your scalp, they sew hair onto the mesh, and then a couple weeks later they shave your head and attach this mesh screen of hair onto your head with surgical glue. And you know, it looked real. They did a pretty good job making it match my side hair and whatnot, but I think I looked at myself in the mirror about 5 times an hour for the next 2 days. Something just wasn't right. It wasn't me in the mirror, and it was a very disturbing feeling, not to mention the weird sensation of sweat building up between my scalp and this hairy wire screen. It looks real, but it does not feel real at all. So, on day 3, I stood in front of the mirror one more time and slowly ripped that thing off my head. And let me tell you how strong fresh surgical glue is. It took my scalp off with it. Blood was streaming down my face by the time I got that thing off. So it hurt like hell physically, but psychologically it was such a relief. All I can say is thank God I didn't go for the surgical plugs. Who knows what I would have done. So between the Rogaine and Hair Club, my baldness cure search was probably up around $4,000 by this point. However, this is still less than another guy I know. For over a year, he went to a clinic where some quack would hook up electrodes to his scalp and pass electrical current into his skin to try to generate hair growth. Needless to say, we're both bald now. Thinking back on these experiences, they seem pretty ridiculous, kind of funny, but some people's stories are kind of sad too. There was a time when I was volunteering at a suicide hotline, and one night I received a call from a woman who was trying to get some advice for her brother. Believe it or not, this guy, her brother, was so psychologically overwhelmed by going bald that he hadn't left his house for 2 years. So, long story short, if you're having a hard time with the experience of losing your hair, let me tell you, you're not alone. It can be an extremely difficult experience, and a lot of people go through it. Because of that, unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses out there ready to profit from your desperation, so be cautious. At this point, I'm now many years into my baldness, and I barely think about it anymore, but sometimes I do think back to those experiences, I tell stories about it, and I decided to do this video to share with other newcomers to the Bald Society about what it finally took for me to get through the whole thing. First of all, I'll be honest about the bad news. It did affect some of my relationships. At the high school and early college age, there were definitely certain girls that I had been friends with who seemed to gravitate away from me when I started losing my hair. Of course, they probably wouldn't say that was the reason, but you just kind of know these things. So that's the bad news. You're gonna go through a change. You're leaving youth behind and moving on. And it might be somewhat of an identity crisis when you see that some of your friends aren't ready to go along with you. And there may very well be a shift in your social circle. I guess it depends on the quality and maturity of your current friends. In my case, some of my female friends from high school became ex-friends. But again, that's just the bad news. The good news is this. As a result of my baldness experience, I learned a lot about what real self-esteem is, about real friendships, and I learned what it means to be a real human, not a fake, phony, or superficial person in this world. And with that understanding, there's no doubt that I've become a happier person than I was before. I went on to establish much better friendships in my life than I had before, And I'm now married to a woman who's much more beautiful internally and externally than any girlfriend I had in high school. I would not have become a person that was ultimately able to connect with such a woman unless I had gone through that stuff. So if your big fear is about girls not liking you, sure, it's going to be true of some, but it's not going to be true of all. And anyway, do you really want to be with someone like that? Baldness could end up being the best thing that ever happened to you. Hopefully it gets better than that, but honestly, as emotionally painful as losing my hair was, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. At this point, I wouldn't attach hair to my head if someone paid me $1 million. Of course, I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I learned a lot about myself from the experience. I became a better person for it, and I definitely think my life is better for it. I know you may not be able to see things this way yet, but hopefully one day, in retrospect, you will find something positive in it as well. So those are my thoughts and perspectives on going bald and baldness cures. I hope it helps someone out there. If you'd like to hear my insights on other topics, including self-esteem, anxiety, social anxiety, stuff you're likely going through if you're having trouble with the baldness transition, please have a listen to my free audio program at mc2method.org. I think if anything about this brief video helped you at all, then you'll definitely get a lot more out of that material. It's free to listen to, and you don't need to sign up for anything. So check it out, mc2method.org. Thank you for watching.